So next we have quadrant 3 tasks, and so these are tasks that are urgent but not important. So things that seem like we have to do them now, but they're not really that important if we don't do them. So some people might think that checking your Facebook statuses or going online, checking email, those kinds of things, they're urgent, but in the big scheme of things, they're probably not really that important. So these are things that Covey calls distractions, and typically you don't want to. These are the things that can kind of get out of hand and waste a lot of time, and that goes into the quadrant 4 activities, which are neither urgent nor important. So these are things like watching TV, reading the news on the internet, stuff that really doesn't matter one way or the other if we do it, and it's not really urgent. We don't have a pressing need to do these things. They just kind of, sometimes they're like rest and relaxation. So these quadrants are going to be a little bit different for everybody. Everyone has slightly different definitions of urgent and important. So the quadrant that can kind of lead us to the most problem with procrastination is actually quadrant 2, and that is where those kinds of tasks can kind of sneak up on us because they're not urgent, but they are really important. We tend to put them off because they're off in the future. We don't really have to worry about them today. Something that's 2 or 3 months away, just by human nature, we're not gonna worry about it too much. The problem with that is that we can keep putting it off, and it kind of develops into a habit, and we might forget about it, and then all of a sudden, it's due in a week, and we've wasted the last 2 or 3 months and not done any work on it. So the quadrant 2 things are really the things that can get us into trouble. Quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 are the things that we kind of use to procrastinate. So we might use going on Facebook, watching TV, use those activities as rest and relaxation, distraction, and kind of just enjoying ourselves. And if we let that happen too often and kind of don't think about our quadrant 2 activities that we need to do, we can let those quadrant 3 and quadrant 4 tasks kind of take over our time, and that's not a good thing. So just be aware of those. Plan your schedules, plan your activities so that you pay attention to quadrant 2, and make sure that you'd work a little bit on those quadrant 2 activities on a consistent basis so that it doesn't sneak up on you. And then you can also plan time to do the things that you enjoy that really aren't important and maybe not that urgent either. So you can schedule in some relaxation and distraction as a way to kind of unwind. So it's important that you keep those in mind, and especially pay attention to those quadrant 2 activities. So one of my students had a great idea for helping her deal with quadrant 2 activities. What she would do is make a list of the quadrant 2 activities, and any assignment that was due in a month or a long-term assignment, she would put it in a red folder and keep that on her desk. So that was her quadrant 2 folder, and that was a way for her to keep those quadrant 2 activities kind of in the forefront so that she didn't forget about them, and she could work on them a little bit at a time as time went on, and make sure that she was able to spend time and get those quadrant 2 activities done. So I thought that was a brilliant idea, and I just wanted to share that with you. Another thing we can do is, I'm a great believer in to-do lists. I love making to-do lists. I think it's really a good way to kind of keep ourselves focused. So when we make our to-do lists, we can prioritize them and try and figure out, okay, what are the quadrant 1 activities, what are the quadrant 2 activities, quadrant 3, quadrant 4, and so that way we can look at our to-do list and know, okay, that's a quadrant 1 activity, I have to do that right now. Here's a quadrant 2 activity, I have to write that paper. I got to make sure that I spend at least half an hour today working on that. So that's another good idea. And actually, this is one of the things that Stephen Covey recommends when you make your to-do list, is that you put a little notation next to it. So if it's psychology paper, put a Q2 next to it to stand for quadrant 2, and that way you can prioritize your activities really quickly and just at a glance, and keep those quadrant 2 things in mind as you go out throughout your day.